We have been in an entertainment drought when it comes to geekdom. Not that there has been a lack of content, but some of the content hasn't been up to par to what some of us geeks might actually like. So I mentioned the fact that I went to see Thor Love and Thunder about 2 weeks ago. Mm, I'm trying to hold my tongue because I don't want to attack the movie just for the sake of attacking the movie because a lot of people do that. Was it good? Thor Love and Thunder wasn't a great Marvel movie. It wasn't a great Marvel showing. Um the director, which is the same director if I'm not mistaken that directed Thor Ragnarok. Thor Ragnarok was good. It was a good, unique change from what we were seeing from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It was more lighthearted. You saw Thor in a more upbeat role, telling jokes. Um, you saw the Hulk talking. This is when we first get some like true interactions, like with the Hulk transitioning into Professor Hulk. It was good. It worked. Thor Love and Thunder took that same premise and went way too far. And I think what in my opinion, what has begun to happen in the comic book sphere is you get directors that take what they see in society and they infuse some of these things into comic books, and they also take their own bent and infuse some of these things into comic books. Now here's the thing. If I was a director, right? If I was a movie director and I created a script, like I wrote a script. Let's say I decided I'm going to write this script. This is my movie, this is my creation. The people who like the script that I wrote. So if somebody were to come behind me and take my script and completely butcher my creation and make a movie, the people who like my script are not going to like that movie. That's the way that works. I think some of these directors take a little too much creative license. I get it. I really get it. You are a director. You have a vision of where you want this movie to go. That's fine. I don't think there's necessarily a problem with that. But I think you do run into problems when you take the original thing that the fans love and you veer so far off what made us love this thing in the first place. Now, when you're a creative, there's got to be some degree of reason and nuance within that, right? If you create a thing, you might want to take that thing into another direction. But if you create a thing, unless you create it just for yourself, then you're going to do whatever you want. You're not really going to care what people think. But if you create this thing because you want other people to enjoy it, then at some point you have to concede to the fans. Not at every end, right? You don't want mob rule when it comes to creation. You want to give a creative person some space to do his or her creative thing, and I understand that. I think what people who take over the directing role for movies, and this goes for Marvel and DC, they take way too much creative license. They do things that they assume fans are going to like, appreciate, and enjoy. And what they realize at some point is, oh, my bad. People don't really like this. This is not the thing people wanted. And I think that's what happened with Thor, Love, and Thunder. There wasn't enough action. The fighting scenes, there wasn't enough of them. And the fighting scenes that you did see were lackluster. Now, this is all my opinion. You may have gone to see that movie and you may have loved it. What I try not to do is I try not to criticize somebody just simply because they love something or like something I didn't like. I'm telling you that I personally did not like Thor, Love, and Thunder. To me, it did not meet the standard of what that original Iron Man movie set as the pinnacle of comic book movies, in my opinion, for Marvel at least. As you can see, I have on my Star Wars shirt today, vintage Star Wars shirt, Star Wars 1977. There's a reason I wore this shirt specifically for recording this video. Jon Favreau, what he has done on the Mandalorian is magnificent. It's glorious. It feels like a nod to fans. It feels like Mr. Favreau understands there's a certain thing the fans want. They don't want this opposite thing of what they're used to getting with Star Wars. And why would you do that? If fans are built up to love something, why would you then smash their dreams, crush the very thing that you created that they love, and do something completely opposite? Now, you can create something else for another group of fans, but once you've created something and they love it and it's, going gangbusters, why change that? I think Jon Favreau understood that. Now, this is also the man behind the first Iron Man. Jon Favreau, look, if Disney doesn't understand that they have a golden child, now there's been rumors and reports that Jon Favreau doesn't really want to take over too much. He likes what he likes what he likes, and I don't know if he wants to be in charge of too much. Just from different things I've read, different things people have said that have connections inside Disney, that might be true. I don't know that. If nothing else, Disney needs to be paying attention to whatever Jon Favreau is doing and understanding what's his magic sauce. Why does this dude have the golden touch when it comes to entertainment content in the geek space? I'll tell you why. Because he's making things that he knows the geeks want to hear. This is what he's doing. Favreau is not just randomly creating things out of thin air and randomly bringing things into fruition through his creative juices and infusing those things into a space that has years of content and years of lore. What he's doing is he's saying, okay, here's the lore, here's the content, this is the direction this thing has gone. Let me add a story here, right in here, without changing anything within the lore. Let me just add a little bit of spice right here and tell a story that was happening around this time without messing anything else up. Why is that so hard? The one gripe I have sometimes with comic book movies, I understand certain things don't translate to the big screen, but why do you have to change core things? I've never understood that. It's like, why do they do this every single time? I'm going to go on a little rant here. Anybody who's read Ready Player One, Ready Player One is a magnificent book. So is Armada. Ernest Cline is the man who wrote that book. Now, from what I believe, I could be mistaken about this. I watched an interview. This was probably 3 or 4 years ago. And I believe Ernest Cline said he started as a screenwriter, but nobody was accepting his screenplays. And so he decided to write a book. He wrote Ready Player One. It was a magnificent success. And if you've read it, you understand why. Now, he was also in on the creation of the Ready Player One movie. And I believe he actually wrote that script. So this is his brainchild. So I kind of got to give him a little bit of leeway, but I'm still going to get on him a little bit because this bothered me. Why in the world did they have to change so much in Ready Player One? This is the reason I understand a little bit. To fit the big screen, how the first token was achieved in the book wouldn't necessarily translate to a movie too well because it was a long process. So in my opinion, that's when you say, okay, well, we're going to turn this into a show. Because we can't really tell the story how it should be told in a movie. It would take too long. or break it up into parts. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm a unique dude in this respect, but I would not mind sitting through an extremely long movie if it's done right. And it wouldn't have bothered me if they did that first token exactly how it was done in the book and made the movie a 2-part movie. I would have been completely fine with that. There's some other things in the movie that were changed slightly that I didn't necessarily care for. It was an okay movie. Definitely didn't hold a candle to the book. But that's with any book that's been translated into a movie. If you read the book first, you're probably not really going to like the movie. Anyway, back to my original point. Thor Love and Thunder was trash. And I don't say that. I don't just throw out that word lightly. It was trash for the standard of Marvel movies. Now, if it was some other studio, if it was a character that had no lore, if Thor was not a comic book and this was just the creation of some screenplay writer and you didn't have years upon years of lore, then Thor Love and Thunder would have been okay. That's a problem. The fact that I'm saying it would have been okay, not that it would have been great. Look, that first Iron Man movie, if there had never been a single Iron Man comic book, if Iron Man had no lore, if Iron Man had no history whatsoever, that movie would have still been magnificent. If there was no Infinity War, Infinity Saga, and Marvel comic books, if Marvel Comics did not exist, that Infinity War saga was still amazing. It was just good. They got some magic sauce. They did something right and they stuck with it and it worked. I think the problem is directors, when they're taking on somebody else's creation, and there's a difference. That's why I'm trying to make this distinction. If you're taking on your own creation, you created this. And this is why I give Ernest Cline a slight pass for Ready Player One, even though I wish the movie would have stuck more closely to the book. I got to give him a pass because that's his brainchild. Now, did he give the fans what they really wanted? In some ways, yes. In some ways, no. But there's nuance to that. So he's kind of different. That's kind of different. When you're dealing with things like Thor, where this director is taking up something that has years of lore, longer than I've been alive, you can't just take that and do whatever you want. There's rules to this. Principality, Smokey. You can't just do whatever you want. But a lot of these directors take a little too much creative license. That leads me into this story because I believe there's a new sheriff in town at DC and he is knocking over sculptures and breaking glass. So we're going to get to what happened with this, a Batgirl movie that was scrapped. And I will tell you why I think this is a good idea, even though it's gonna hurt DC's budget. I think in the long run, this is a good idea. And I think more production studios that are taking on comic book movies, things, or just any story that has years upon years of lore, you got to be very careful. You got to stick to the script. Don't go off the rails trying to bring what you think this should be to the table. When you have your own creation and your own lore and your own universe, feel free to do that. Fans may not like it if you change too much from what you originally gave them, but feel free to do that. When you're taking on someone else's creation, bro, stick to the script. Don't just go off the rails thinking that you can just do whatever it is you want. But let's get into this story. So Batgirl, when I heard this, I didn't really know much about it, so I kind of stayed away from it. But as more and more information came out, I was like, yo, this is wild. Okay, it says Batgirl directors issue response following the film's sudden cancellation. We are saddened and shocked by the news. And if I'm not mistaken, these directors, or at least one of them, also worked on that Miss Marvel um uh uh TV show on Disney Plus. I've not heard good things about Miss Marvel. I haven't watched it, so I can't personally say it's bad, but there's been enough people that have had not so good reviews that suffice it to say, I think they're probably accurate reviews. Okay, it says, in the wake of an impromptu cancellation of Warner Bros. Discovery Batgirl, directors uh, uh, Adil El Arabi and Bilal Fallah sent out a joint statement in reaction to the fact their film was no longer being released. Now, this is a big deal. For this, you have to think the money was already spent, and a lot of money. This movie was expected to go out. I think it was going to be just an HBO Max release. I'm not completely sure about that, but let's read some more. Multiple reports. Warner Bros. Discovery cuts losses, cans race swapped Batgirl film following poor test screening. Now, I'm a big fan of Batman. He is my favorite hero. I say hero and not superhero because technically Batman doesn't have superpowers, although amongst fan lore, it has always been speculated that Bruce Wayne has superhuman intellect, which I can actually believe that. Okay, we were saddened and shocked by the news. We still can't believe it. The statement began in an Instagram post via El Arabi's account. It continues, as directors, it is critical that our work be shown to audiences. And while the film was far from finished, we wish the fans all over the world would have had the opportunity to see and embrace the final film themselves. Possibly with the Snyder Cut in mind, they add, maybe one day they, meaning Warner Brothers, DC, will. So they're hoping that this thing will be released kind of like the Snyder Cut. Now, I don't know how good this is. I don't know what you think, what your opinion of the Snyder Cut was. I think that was one of the greatest things coming out of DC as far as movies since like Wonder Woman or that original Man of Steel, that Superman release, which was a great movie. Why they didn't continue with that? I mean, DC has a lot of missteps when it comes to movies. Like DC could have actually leapt ahead of Marvel and done a lot, and I don't know why they didn't. It seems like they were just fumbling the ball, not exactly sure what's going on. Okay, it says the duo praised their cast and crew for their tremendous job and hard work, bringing Batgirl to life. They continue, we are forever grateful to have been part of that team. It was a dream to work with such fantastic actors like Michael Keaton, J.K. Simmons, Brendan Fraser, Jacob Scipio, Corey Johnson, and Rebecca Front. El Arabi and Falah also especially thank the great Leslie Grace, who portrayed Batgirl with so much passion, dedication, and humanity. Okay, so I'm just going to tell you what I personally think. I'm not saying this is the case. I'm not a mind reader. Of course, I haven't seen the movie, but when I see statements like this, she portrayed Batgirl with so much passion, dedication, and humanity. To me, this is a loaded statement. And the reason this is a loaded statement is it seems like they were trying to make a statement in their creation of Batgirl that wasn't really consistent with the comic. If this is the thing they got, right? Like, if as a comic book geek, if I was a director, my statement would be, Yo, her portrayal of Batgirl was so insanely close to what you see in the comic books that we wanted you to see this. That's not what's said. To me, that sends a red flag. To me, that tells me you were focused on other things. You weren't really focused on a comic book. Now, let me say this. Some people have a problem with characters who are race swapped. I don't necessarily have a problem with that. I don't. I'm just being honest with you. If it's done organically and if the role is played correctly and if the focus isn't on the race swap, I don't really care. It doesn't really bother me. You want to pick the best actor to take over this role. I'm fine with that. Like I said, I don't really have an issue with that. I'll give you an example. If you saw this recent Batman, which I'm telling you, if you have not seen it, the movie was great. Now, a lot of people didn't like this recent Batman, and the reason they didn't like it is because they didn't understand what this Batman was portraying. This is Batman year 1 and year 2, before all of the wisdom he had as a more seasoned Batman, before all of the gadgets, before all of the tact he has as the mature Batman we're so used to seeing. This was an accurate portrayal of Batman year 1. This was an accurate portrayal. If you know anything about the comic books, you could see, yo, this was legit. Now, Commissioner Gordon, who's white in the comic books, he was black in this movie. But the thing that made this role so good is they didn't focus on the fact that he was black. They didn't build the meat of his character around his race. He just played a good Commissioner Gordon. Forgive me, I can't remember the gentleman's name who played Commissioner Gordon, but he did a great job. I'm not one of these people that gets so incensed out the gate by race swaps. It doesn't bother me if it's organic and the focus isn't the race. If it's just, yo, even though this character is typically, let's say, white, and we picked a black woman or black man, or even though this character is typically black and we picked a white woman or white man or Chinese or whatever, the actor nailed the portrayal of this character consistent with the comic book. Yo, I'm good with that. As a geek, I'm telling you, I'm good with that. Okay. The directing duo concluded their statement by expressing their collective Batman fandom. In any case, as huge fans of Batman since we were little kids, it was a privilege and an honor to have been a part of the DCEU, even if it was for a brief moment. Batgirl for life. This is my, I'm just assuming here, I don't know, obviously. If they did a test screening and the test screening didn't really go well, that tells me that the fans, the actual people that you're supposed to be making this for, gave you a thumbs down and said, no, we don't want this. I'm just guessing. I don't know. I'm guessing that the portrayal wasn't really good. And I'm gonna say something else, right? DC, as far as their cinema, I really don't understand them. I'll explain. We had that series Gotham, which if you didn't see Gotham, yo, Gotham was a really good series. And at the end of Gotham, you got to see Batman, I think the last half of the second to last episode and the last episode, I believe, I can't remember. Everyone wanted a Batman series. As a Batman fan, I want a really well done Batman series. And then what did DC give us? Was that series? Was it Batwoman or Batgirl? Was it Batwoman? I can't even remember. I never watched it. Because in my mind as a fan, I was like, yo, who told you after Gotham we wanted this? We wanted to see a Batman television show done right, and they gave Batgirl. This is what happens when you have people. I'm hesitating to say this because I don't really want to make it about an agenda, but it seems that way. It seems like that the creators of Batwoman, Batgirl, whatever that show was, they had an agenda and they weren't listening to the actual fans. You might have a lot of people out and among the sphere of people who watch entertainment that comment and say a lot of things, but I'm telling you what, when it comes to geekdom, if I was a director, I would tune out all the side noise. All the side noise I would tune out. You know what I would do if I was a director? First, I would hope that people didn't really know who I am, because that would be to my advantage. But this is what I would do. I would go, in my opinion, I would go to random comic book shops and just act like I'm searching for comic books and just start talking to people about movies and what's coming out and what they want, and see what the actual geeks want to see. Not the people making noise, because the thing that made the Marvel Cinematic Universe shoot to the moon and so quickly, even though there were certain things that were changed in the movies that weren't necessarily super consistent with the comic books, it was so good, and the portrayal of the characters were so accurate to the comic book that all of the geeks collectively said, yeah, we'll give this a pass. Like, yeah, you changed some things and we would have rather you not change all those things, but we're giving this a pass. When they cast Tom Holland as Spider-Man, now I know that's not all Disney, that's Sony, but Sony and Disney got together, which was great for the fans. Tom Holland, to date, in my opinion, is the greatest portrayal of Spider-Man. Some people disagree. Some people like Tobey Maguire better. I understand. I get it. But Tom Holland, great choice. This, like, everything that was surrounding the Marvel Cinematic Universe was just like a kiss to geeks throughout history. It was magnificent. Now, I'm not seeing that from Marvel right now, unfortunately, and that's very unfortunate. I wish they would get back to form. I wish a lot of these people in entertainment who are attacking or attempting to take up the mantle of creating entertainment surrounding comic books, I wish they would really get back to the fans. You know what's most disappointing to me about DC? Jim Lee, who's my favorite comic book artist of all time, I'm not sure if he's still in this position, but I believe he is the DC's creative control officer, something like that. He's head of creation. He's spearheading a lot of things within DC. My guy, Jim Lee, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? Some of the things coming out of DC is just not cutting it for the fans. You know, it's no telling. Of course, all of this is my opinions. It does not make them right. In my opinion, it's no surprise that Eric July has achieved such success with the Rippaverse. I am not shocked in the least. You know why I'm not shocked? Him, as a fan of comic books, understood what comic book fans wanted, and he said to himself, I will supply that. I will oblige. I see what you guys want. I see what's happening. I'll meet you and I'll give you exactly what you want, because this is what the fans have been waiting for. And I think this is what people think about the Rippaverse. Will he provide us that? We won't know until we have the books in our hand. We won't know until he creates more things. But I think that's the path he's headed on. And I think he could teach a lot of these major companies a lesson. There's years upon years of lore with these comic books. Stop messing with the lore and just give the fans a cinematic adaptation of what we read in the comic books. That's all we want.